in today's age, when men don't get along with women, women don't get along with men, how is it possible that we, together as a couple of 16 years, beat the odds, right? So we're living in an age when kind of like we're all taught that we should all go our own way, and we've kind of gone through periods of unemployment, uncertain living situations,
family death,
disapproving family members, all kinds of health issues,
moving around the country, down to different jobs,
and even COVID, living together 24/7. So how is it possible that in this age, in this climate, that we're still together? So I put together a list of 10 reasons why, and she also did as well.
Yes.
And we're going to go through one by one to kind of talk through where it is that we did it right. And also, of course, the most important is like, what can you take away from this in terms of what are some takeaways you can learn from this and set yourself up for a situation where you too can be in a 16-year relationship.
So let's start.
I think the first major reason why we're still together after 16 years is one of belief. Belief that 1 + 1 = 3, not
Why not
2.
2?
Like that's what they teach you in school, right?
Yeah.
And I
isn't it 1 + 1?
Yeah, I talk from the perspective of someone who's actually really good at math. That it's not 1 + 1 = 2. It's 1 + 1 = 3. You have to believe that you're a team, and that by combining forces, you can be kind of bigger than the sum of your parts. And so in a way, it's kind of like you have to believe that there's a gap in your life that somebody else can kind of fill, and you have to believe that you too can fulfill someone else's gap. And it's that whole kind of like yin and yang diagram, and I really like that diagram because it illustrates like how you kind of bulge in kind of in a certain area, but you also bulge out, and that kind of yin yang balance is like super critical, at least in our relationship.
Yeah, it's
so
more like a perspective of where we're filled, we know who our identity is, and that what you bring to the table is a very important thing. So you have two separate things, but when you come together, you combine forces, you're a force to be reckoned with, and when you're together, that's that third thing, not the 2, but the 3.
Yeah, I think that in today's society, like not everyone actually believes that. It sounds simple, but not everyone believes that, because there's a lot of brainwashing you could think of. There's a lot of narrative where it's like, hey, you're better off on your own. You don't need no man, and
you don't need no woman.
You don't need no woman. So it's like
naysayers.
You can do it all on your own. And yes, there's that's called self-sufficiency, but that's different from independence. Yes, I can cook my own dishes and all that stuff, but it's better when there's help, when someone's offering a different perspective, and then we kind of like build on that. So I really do believe 1 + 1 = 3, at least when it comes to relationships.
It's more of adding on to the relationship instead of thinking of someone taking it away. So it's like you still have your independence, but when something is added into your life, it's a more of abundance than a depletion.
Yeah, so that's like at least what I have on my first list, the belief that 1 + 1 = 3. What do you have on your first list?
On my first list, I have more of patience, willingness, openness, being compassionate, and also I guess the deep down root of it being flexible. Being flexible to open to changes, or willing to change, and setting aside your ego and your pride.
Yeah, I think what she's describing here kind of matches to what I have listed as like flexibility, and I guess that plays into when I select a partner, and perhaps when you select a partner as well, which is you want to choose someone who can be at least a little bit flexible, and so whether it's like making plans, or you believe something and they believe something else. And if there's like absolutely no desire to listen to the other side and seek to understand, then it's like it's not going to work. You have to have that willingness and desire to actually genuinely try to understand the other side.
And also a dash of agreeableness. It's not saying you're yielding to someone, or you can still have your opinions. It's just that having the agreeableness and the flexibility helps along the way, and also encourages a lot more team player moments, and also working through conflict resolution problems as well too.
Yeah, and agreeableness is actually one of those personality traits. So, I think it's harder and harder to find that trait, and it sounds simple, like, oh yeah, I'll just agree with whatever, but it's more a process where it's like you seek to understand, and then you kind of like provide additional perspective, and then you kind of come to some agreement in terms of where you want to eat, where you want to live, like what you want to do for the weekend, and so I think that that's an element of a personality trait that I think is overlooked by a lot of people, at least in traditional kind of style relationships, where in a way, generally speaking, the guy is usually more attractive if he's kind of a little bit selfish and a little bit disagreeable, versus if the guy is too agreeable and kind of like a doormat and just kind of like in a way simping.
Women's looking for someone to guide them and to lead them. So if you're always agreeing on something, and you're not suspicious, or it's more of the animalistic and human intrinsic trait that we've had from long time ago, evolution. Like, are you going to lead us to a safe road, or a dangerous one? And so you need to have those what ifs.
Yeah, so that lead and follow dynamic is kind of goes back to that yin and yang that I was just alluding to earlier, where it's like, yes, like it's a team, but there's always got to be someone who leads a little bit and follows, and it's not like 100% everything.
Yeah,
it's like in some areas where
situations,
like certain situations I might take the lead, in other situations you may take the lead.
Yeah,
and it doesn't even have to be in traditional ways. Like a lot of times, like when it comes to like the assembling IKEA furniture, it's like, and
you're having an issue or trouble. Like, I look at it, and so then I'm curious, and I'll ask you a question. Hey, do you need help? Oh yeah, please help me. If you are able to help figure out, and assemble the.
Yeah, she's actually the one who's better at hands-on, like product design, product assembly. So that's
but you're
actually
also software, so
Yeah, I'm more digital stuff. Yeah. So like she's that's in a way kind of what I also in one of my other areas where you want to choose someone who kind of balances your weaknesses and your strengths. So I think in that sense, like choosing the right partner is another one. But we'll get into that. Like so that was your first one called flexibility.
Yes, and patience and compassion. Yeah.
Patience and compassion. My first one was the belief that 1 + 1 = 3. Her first one,
flexibility. And
flexibility and compassion, agreeableness. My second one is constant commitment to self-help, self-introspection, and self-improvement. From both of us, I can speak for myself. I'm constantly consuming guy self-help as well as girl self-help, and so I would say it's probably around 70-30. I do a lot of 70% guy self-help, and in 30% I watch a lot of girls self-help stuff, and I think it's really important to have that perspective and balance. And I know that's you can hear me in the other room listening to a lot of stuff, and what that does is, like, I think there are some themes from self-help in general that I've gotten, which is number one, not jumping to conclusions and assuming the worst in your partner. So every time someone does something, like you could be like, all right, well, that's surface what I see, but you can also think, oh, he's doing it because of some negative intent. And I think that's a very dangerous thing that I've seen other couples do, and that's usually the number one thing that is messing up other couple relationships from the consultations we've done. And
Well, it's the extremity, right? Because everything in society right now and in culture, everything is pulled towards sensationalism and your gut reaction and feeling instead of being more disciplined and reserved and using your, your noggin and thinking, wait, what did I just hear? How do I self-reflect a little bit before I regurgitate or feel what I say? Because sometimes words do hurt and they can be very strong and have a strong and cautionary reaction as well too.
Yeah, so I would say that's 2A, like not assuming the worst in your partner. In a way, think before you react. That's my number one theme.
Well, it's also like it's not black or white, it's gray. Most of the time in life, there are a lot of gray matters. So how do we navigate that? Is there an example of one that, is a good example?
Yeah. So actually, I have that as 2C, but let me do. So that 2A is assuming the worst in your partner. Not make sure you don't do that. And I mean, let's do examples for that first. So I can say, for example, when I push for like not getting married, a lot of people, including family members, would assume the worst in me, in thinking like
non-committal.
Not committal. I'm not a good person. I
not putting my needs before his, or like
right.
Not needs before his, but to make sure and guarantee that in the future, if something, God forbid, happens, that I'm well protected and taken care of.
Yeah, and
there are different ways.
Yeah, and in my view, I don't believe the government should get involved. There's other ways to accomplish those same tasks without necessarily getting a signature with the government. And also the decision to move different cities. We've lived in New York City. I've lived in Los Angeles. We've lived in San Francisco, Miami, Florida, and then even within New York, multiple different places. Yeah. So, every time we're moving, it's like people are like, "What are you doing?" And so you can assume the worst. Oh, there he goes again. I can't find dragging her around. And you can assume the worst, or you could assume, or you could be neutral and kind of like try to observe and understand the situation. Or understand
and say, oh, you guys are moving again. Oh, it seems like it's a mutual choice.
Yeah. So those are two examples with the assuming the worst in the other side. And 2B, I have as emotional control and regulation and not escalating things.
At times. Sometimes. Yeah? Oh, you were saying?
I mean, you tell me when has there been escalations? Because like, a top reason why other couples kind of blow up is because over something very little that almost doesn't matter, but then there's like this passive aggressive like undertones and escalation of voice, escalation in terms of physical threats and physical involvement.
Space.
And I have never even had a inkling of that kind of escalation. I may act annoyed, but I never physically escalate. I never raise my voice and do any kind of like loud shouting. So that's on me, and that's through, in a way, kind of music, cello playing, piano training, and kind of over the years of regulating my emotions, and and I would say you don't necessarily do that either.
No, it's pretty calm and chill.
So before you said you kind of you gave a hesitation. So what was that?
Well, no. Once in a while, if I'm not heard, then I start raising my voice a little bit, or it's just like you hear the sense of urgency, or it's just like you're not seeking to understand my point of view.
Right. So, but that's on your side. That's not me raising my voice, or
no.
Right. So you if you don't feel heard, you might escalate, and then that's a
natural inclination.
Right. So it's my job then to kind of make sure that those concerns are addressed, and I think by prioritizing that's partly what's gotten us to 16 years, which is like there's going to be bound to be like small forms of escalation, but if you don't control those, you don't spot those, you don't address them head on, they can easily escalate to even bigger ones.
Yeah. And a great way is creative problem solving or thinking outside the box. So what necessarily works for other couples may not work for me. Same for you guys as well too. So you gotta, if you keep running to the same altercations, you've got to think outside the box. That's the number one, I think, rule that helps sustain both of our
So what's an example of a think outside this box situation where?
Well, when I have like issues of getting your attention or you're not understanding my logic or reason, then I have to, and I keep saying the same thing, but the same thing happens over again. Sometimes what I would do is reach out to friends and family or seek outside help and explain what my situation is, and maybe they can give me ideas.
Yeah, I actually, I remember with the laundry, right? So there was a time when you were frustrated that I didn't put stuff into the laundry machine or take it out.
Oh.
And it's always often because like I'm working at home, so I'm busy doing other stuff.
Yeah.
And I want to keep my focus there. And so the outside of the box solution that I came up with and that you thought was a good solution was that if you for example the laundry is done and I need to take it out and get it ready for folding, that you would open the laundry door.
Oh, to
and
signal.
Yes. It's like blocking the hallway, right?
Yeah.
So it's very visible, right? So next time I walk through that hallway area and I see it popped out, I'm like, okay, I know that's a signal. That way you don't have to wait for me to do it. You just give me the signal. It could be an hour later, it could be 2-3 hours later, and then I see the door open, and then when I'm available,
normally I want him it done right away, but yes,
so her desire was like, I want this done now. And I'm like, does it have to be done now, or can it wait a little bit? And her viewpoint is it has to be done now.
Yeah.
Well, I'm busy. I'm working at home. I got work to do. So it's like if you give certain signals so that when I'm taking a bathroom break, and I see the signal and it's very visible, then I can take action, and you can relax knowing that issue is addressed. Yeah. So that's an example of a outside of the box situation to avoid 2B escalations. Yeah. So moving on to 2C.
You're too cute, Alan.
The 2C is basically seeing the world as not necessarily black and white. So I think
we touched upon that.
Yeah, we touched upon you touched upon that, and why don't you expand on that?
Well, in life there's not just one way of reasoning. There's multiple different options and choices, and when given there's certain situations, people tend to think it's one way or the highway kind of thing, and there are multiple ways to get to a solution or to ameliorate, to get out of it. And necessarily it doesn't have to be upon just focusing on just that one person, but you should extend open invitation to work it out together as a team. Instead of, you did this, so I'm going to punish you for it, which is not necessarily the case. I mean, you wouldn't want that for yourself. So it's like putting yourself in other people's situation. How would you want to be treated is number one and first foremost, respect, right? And how do you do it in a way that is in a more dignified and, like giving not benefit of the doubt, but like...
But how does the black and white part affect the actual relationship? Like, say you don't...
Black and white part doesn't give the other person a chance, openness to...
So you're saying like
being open, not open, but being vulnerable and to learn through the mistakes if it's a mistake. And because if you don't seek to understand or have the curiosity and you shut that door down, it doesn't give opportunities to learn that there are different other ways to solve the problem. Because in your mind, if someone is a black and white, it has to be solved in one way. A directly to B instead of A to like B point B or B point C. There are all these little fine little paths that maybe could be better, but because you've shut it down and there's only one lane, there's multiple paths. There's multiple paths to learning how to, answer the solution or figure out the solutions, and also in life as well too.
Yeah, so I think what she's talking about is like
Deviation.
believing that the other side is necessarily wrong.
Yeah.
So like when it's black and white, you believe you're right and the other person is absolutely wrong.
Yeah.
And it almost never is the case like that. And I think the way it affects relationships is when it comes to discussing and arguing topics. Like for example, some news event happens, and then you as a couple discuss it together.
Talk about it, yeah.
And then like if you see it one way and your partner sees it another way, you could easily just get into arguments over something that's not even like in your life, right? You could be talking about the Ukraine-Russia war, or vaccines or no vaccines, or
those are
pretty versus
strong.
Israel.
Yeah, these are all very strong
Like,
topics, honey.
or it could be like transvestite education in public schools
Can
or
you-
not, or Disney.
No,
They
no,
could be- but these are real things that happen in the real world, and like you're bound to discuss some of it with your partner if you're gonna have any overlap, and if you don't see things in gray, shades of gray, then you're bound to kind of like have more conflict, and when you have more conflict,
you're just gonna miss the point that the other person is trying to explain to you. Whether you agree with it or not, you can still disagree with something, but give the open opportunity and chance to maybe learn. You can learn from other perspectives is, I think, a very important thing.
Yeah, so I think that open-mindedness, the willingness to challenge, ways of thinking and traditional ways of thinking is black and white. And if you can challenge that and see the shades of gray, you can do a lot for your relationship. So that's 2C. And then 2D is not having unrealistic expectations of each other.
And what are the examples?
Like,
you had one in the beginning when I first started dating you.
What's that?
Well, I was like, oh, you're my Prince Charming, I was like, you're my knight in shining armor. And then you're like, no, like, I'm not here and you're not here. We're here. Like, we're together. Like, it's more like him sitting on a high stool, or a throne. And you're like, no, knock those legs off. So in my mind, mindset-wise, I was like, oh, okay. And then it's just like come back down to earth, because you're floating in La La Land, in fantasy land, and realize, oh, this is, because I was brainwashed through movies, culture, and things like that. And then you realize, wait, I really should be thinking for myself, or not even thinking for myself, but seeing in a different perspective. Because that gives too much pressure. I think you were saying like, oh, why are you thinking of me in that way? That's a lot of pressure. And then I started thinking, oh, wow, like I didn't realize I put too much pressure on you, and I didn't even know you that well. I was just getting to know you.
So that's like making sure you don't put your partner on the pedestal, because then it creates too much of an imbalance in value, and what you want is like a more
teamwork.
It's a team. Like you see it as a team rather than as like imbalances that over time can erode the relationship. And another way of not having unrealistic expectations is like I don't expect, and I try to manage her expectations, that I can't fulfill every dimension of her life.
Yeah.
Right. So like we can't set that expectation. We have to, like I can handle a few of them, but I'm like a natural introvert and she's more extroverted.
Yeah.
She likes to talk to people.
More sociable and everything. But I have my other buckets. I will lean towards my support system, which would be like friends, coworkers, or family.
Right, and I encourage that, right? Because like there's absolutely no way that one person can fulfill every dimension of your life. And if you believe that, that's going to set you up for failure. So it's important to set that expectation and then encourage your partner to do what it takes to fulfill these other areas of their life, so that she can come back to you and overlap where you're comfortable, instead of like making sure every every little thing is
Well,
an
it also
overlap.
gives, like, when you lean on others, like, for support and help, it gives other fresh perspective. Because maybe, like, you know, the way that I talk to my girlfriend, I, you know, don't normally talk to my boyfriend about it. Like, he doesn't want to hear about the gossip, but my girlfriend will. Or, like, you know, I complain about the day where life's unfair, but I just want her to hear it out. For many males, they just want to problem solve and, like, try to take that burden or pain away or annoyance away from you so that they don't have to hear it from it again. So it's just different perspectives and buckets. And hey, you never know. Maybe your same girlfriend is having the same issue as you are. How do they solve that? And those are the tips and tricks that are great that, you know, either I learn from it and I bring it into my own, you know, relationship, vice versa.